Okay, well, I'm Tim with the Register, Tim Stauffer, and I'm here with Camille Lavon. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
Well, you are Thrive's Economic Development Director. You work in all of Allen County. And how long have you been in your position now?
That's a good question. So July 15th, August, September, October, we could say 3 months.
Wow. Huh.
I feel like it's almost exactly 3 months that I've been here. And it's a really cool partnership that came together with that, right? So it was
Right.
Thrive, Allen County, City of Iola, City of Humboldt, and Iola Industries. So 5 distinct entities that have to agree and come together and really decide to invest in economic development. And economic development can be very elusive, as you know, right?
Yeah.
And so you just think about the kind of trust and partnerships that all 5 of them had to have in order to create this position.
Yeah. Took a lot of work.
I bet.
And I have to ask, so you're 3 months in.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me quickly, well, not quickly, but I want to know what's the best part of your job and the worst part of your job?
Oh gosh, the best part of my job is the opportunity to work with my community to create opportunities for people, because that's what jobs are. I love jobs. Like we always hear that old saying, what is it? I'm going to say it wrong because you're going to learn this about me. I'm not great about these like niche phrases, but you don't go give someone a fish, you teach them how to fish.
Sure.
We all heard it, right? Growing
Right.
up, I feel like our grandparents said it to us as soon as we were old enough to get a job. But that's what economic development does, is it creates high wage, high impact, very exciting jobs within a community, and allows that community and that individual to pave their own way, find their own path. And I find that very, very exciting. The other side of it, gosh, you said, what do I find the most challenging, right?
I said worst, but you could go with challenging.
the worst, most challenging.
You said it better than I did. Yeah.
Right. I feel like there's never enough of me to go around. All I see is constant opportunity to support companies that have already invested here, or to meet with a partner and bring them in together into conversation. And I get really frustrated because I just feel like I do not have the bandwidth to be able to go after everything at once. I feel like it's me. I don't know if that's necessarily the job.
But you're limited by so many hours in a day. And so many days in a
there's a lot of, I feel that a lot here, but I felt it doing economic development in other communities as well. I think it's the nature of the beast. A lot of economic development is about learning. And so when you meet someone who's been an economic developer for a really long amount of time, it's really exciting because they have been forced to just learn almost absolutely everything. And so if you do have the opportunity to do that, I encourage everyone to talk to that person. But I say that, I wish I was there already. Like I wish I was like 40 years deep.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here. And I invited you today because, as you probably know, the recent announcement by Gates to shut down their HFM division and with it about 80 jobs has really rocked this community. It's definitely been at the top of our most read articles. It's definitely been what I'm hearing people talk around town about.
Yeah.
And I think it's hit people in a pretty visceral way. Not that some or others didn't see this potentially coming.
Right.
Industries go through cycles. And, as Richard Lucan wrote about when he spoke with Jim and Mary Kay and you, not everybody is supposed to win all of the time. There's these natural progressions. But I guess that really led me to want to pick your brain about a couple things. And the first thing is, you've been here 3 months now, and I know that you're out every day speaking with business owners and industry leaders. And so I kind of wanted to start with, what are the pain points that you're learning, that you're picking up on? What are people saying, you know what, Camille, this sucks, or this is really hard? And not I have some optimistic questions, but I guess I just wanted to get at the grain of that, is just, what are you hearing from people that is the top of their concerns?
I would say that some of these things we are in a very special kind of season right now politically. Like when you look at the big picture, because economic development is a little of everything. And we know that politics are a part of how you do business. And so that is a little bit of what I'm hearing in terms of trends, is just that right now, with our current administration, they're finding their footing. And so as they find their footing, our local industry are doing the same thing. I mean, I like to say, look at the housing market, because I think it makes it really personal for me and for you, meaning that right now, a lot of people aren't buying that new home. They're waiting. They're kind of waiting. Is the interest rate going to drop? Is it going to sustain? What are we going to do? Right.
Yep.
So you can imagine just a company doing the exact same thing. There's a lot of conversation. So whether you're excited about the tariffs or you're fearful of them, no matter where you sit with that particular piece, just on a standalone, everybody's watch and see. Wait, watch and see. And so that's created a little bit of a ripple when you think about investment. And so that's one theme that comes up. I'm going to tell you, though, for as long as I've done this, politics always find their way in how we're doing business and those kind of decisions. Right. But that's one of them. Some of them have raised concerns about what does our local process look like? And some of that will involve kind of working with my municipal partners and finding out what is that process when we're expanding.
When you mean, okay, so tell me, what do you mean by that?
So a lot of industry expansions tie into different things. So like taxes, right? But also permitting, codes, things like that. And so there will be trends and conversation around that as well, as in when we look at our competitors. So sometimes our competitors are going to be the next state over. Sometimes we're in the global arena, right? And so now we're looking at other countries like China and Mexico and so on and so forth, especially like with our semiconductor manufacturers, we get more global, right? And sometimes we're looking at Chanute, right next door.
Yeah.
And so we really have to be able to have a sense of awareness of what we're offering and what we can offer. And speed to business does come at a very high value. If you can show a project or a company that you can move quickly and save them time, you're now saving them money, just like for me and you, right? And so sometimes that will come up in conversation as well, because pain points can be varied. They could look different from one company to the next.
One thing that I hear all the time, and I'm sure you've heard it, is nobody wants to work. I've heard that since I have moved back to town. And so I want to ask you what you have learned about kind of the flip side. So I just asked you about business and in industrial community, and now I want to ask you about the workforce.
Right.
What have you learned about Allen County's workforce? And do you find that holds any water, this nobody wants to work, or are there different things at play there?
I mean, based on our unemployment rate, I wouldn't agree with that. In fact, our unemployment rate kind of works against us.
It's like at 4%.
Yeah, it's at a good percent.
Right.
Basically, it's really funny, isn't it? We're glad that we have a low unemployment rate, but what does that mean for a company looking at the region is what is the available workforce and having that unemployment rate?
And there's a shallow labor pool, so I don't have a lot of
potential. And here's some fun, cool facts about Allen County is that because we're not a dual county, because you're a standalone, and you may already be aware of this, but before I stepped into the position, I did a lot of data gathering independently, and I was unable to pull numbers for Allen County as a standalone because in the state of Kansas, they lumped a lot of that data with all standalone counties together.
Okay.
Now, a lot of the metrics I'm looking at when I'm coming into the position are the same ones that a site selector would look at. Site selectors help companies make their expansion or relocation decisions. And so that means two sides is one, we don't really know what that number is based on the tools that I have had to gather our workforce. There are some numbers out there, and I'm starting to kind of play around with those and get creative. And the other side is that if a site selector can't find those numbers, it's actually an upper edge. That means that we have more of an opportunity to tell our story than a dual county region, metropolitan statistical area, much like my previous was a dual. You would be able to find those. You got it. Right? I'd be able to pull those exact numbers, but I wasn't able to do that with Allen County. I think there is, and I again, because I'm 3 months in, what I have found is you guys have done a few different, I think what they're called is, I think they were cluster analysis. A lot of times those also involve like a labor shed analysis. Labor shed is workforce of today, workforce of the future, and then oftentimes it includes demographics like education, diversity quotient, so on and so forth, all mixed in there, just so that when an employer looks into this community, they can say, okay, I have 300 engineers, I have 200 middle management, about 600 frontline employees that I could access because my partners are already doing business in the region, as in other manufacturers, right? So I say all of that. I haven't really found proof that the workforce isn't available, even though Gates is a really disappointing piece of news that we've recently received. The movement of the job fair and our ability to retain those 80 employees is going to be indicative for me to be able to see if we have the workforce to support, essentially, right? So if the job fair is full and Allen County is able to absorb through our primary employers those 80, that tells me that maybe we do have a little bit of a workforce level and we need to get more people in here because we snatch them up. But if all of them aren't employed in the region and we lose some outside the region, we don't fill the job fair, that informs me that we do have workers out there. Yeah. If we brought an opportunity, we would be able to support.
Sure. And I've heard that you want some level of unemployment in your workforce because people are leaving and changing jobs. You want some movement in your job market. You don't want everybody. So to say 4%, people think, well, there's 4 out of 100 who aren't working. Well, it may be that they're switching jobs, looking,
Right.
And one thing that surprises me too about this region is there are many people who travel between counties every day for work. I live in Colony and I come to Iola for work.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
I work at Wolf Creek, and that's in Burlington, and that's 40 minutes away. So we have Allen County, but there's also this larger region. People here are used to driving.
Right.
Well, shoot, in LA, it'd take you an hour to go 2 miles. And so
it is very different out here. It's been kind of interesting for me to realize how far we can reach to pull in a workforce or a talent pool. And then also there is a sense of migration as well. When there's great opportunities that come available, then a lot of times people might migrate to the community called home, especially when you have a quality of life component.
One question I want to ask, kind of on the flip side, I asked you a couple questions about where we're falling short, or what business owners are seeing as some problems. What are some of the strengths that you've been able to see in this region in the last 3 months? What are some things that you're picking up on and saying, hey, you know what? They're actually doing this right here.
Yeah, a lot of it is the collaboration, the ability for everyone to work together. That impacts speed to business when they're coming in and selecting the region. But in general, it just indicates to a company that your community is working in a very sophisticated way. And that's what they want to see, right? Just like you and I would want to see that. They like to see a sophisticated process. Outside of that, I would say that we have a lot of assets in the community. When I came in, there were a few things that really got my attention. I saw that there was a community college system within the county. So that got me really excited because those 2-year programs are traditionally the ones that you kind of get a lot of your frontline to middle management, especially when you're talking manufacturing and the trades and machinists and all those pieces, right?
Now, really high demand positions, right?
They are. And ACC, I know right now they aren't focusing in those particular areas, but they are open to those conversations. And I do know they have advisory councils that they're really going to right now with new, strong leadership to say, what does the future look like? And let's get ahead of this. And there are some things that could happen right now at Allen Community College that could start supporting that trajectory. And when ACC can't, quite frankly, we do have Neosho right across the county line. And so we do have that. That was a very big strength. USD 257, some of the things that they're doing has really gotten my attention. Now, it's nice that we have all 3 school districts. It's just so happened that I've gotten to learn about USD 257 first. Right. Some of the stuff that Stacy has with the wraparound service and that's Stacy Fager, approach.
Our superintendent.
Yes, yeah. And so some of the things that I've been able to be introduced to through his team, having the clinic on site, the super snack that was added at the end of the school day, safe space as an option. I'm going to tell you, it is mouths to the floor, like jaws to the floor every time I mention safe space at no cost as an available asset. Now, all these things still have room to grow, but they're a really, really great start. Right. And so when we have open honest conversations about what we need to work on at our districts,
Yeah.
we can also now say, but here's the steps that we've already taken. And these things they are very specialized. They don't exist in other areas.
Yeah.
It's those kinds of that, again, I kind of use the word sophisticated a lot, but that's because that is what's happening. Someone is really owning their obstacles, their barriers, and they're saying, well, how can I affect that?
Sure.
What is my circle of influence? And that's exactly what I see that school district doing. We also have a really crazy group of people in this community that are innovators and entrepreneurs. And it hasn't always been easy to do business here. It's very obvious. I can see the industrial boom, and then I saw the bust. And then I kind of see this kind of civic revolution coming in with this community saying,
where do you see that? That's interesting.
I see it in a lot of different, like I see it on your bike trails, and Lehigh Portland State Park is a great identifier of it. But I see it all the time, almost in your developers as well, like all these projects and these historic buildings that just will not get updated. And so they go after it, and then something else happens. They take a step back, they take a breath, and then they go in again. I just see that all the time. And it's very impressive. That kind of tenacity is priceless. Like you don't find that everywhere. Nobody's, throwing their hands up in the air and they're going, never mind. People are still growing small business, even though it's not the easiest thing to do. Now it's my job to make it easier.
That's actually a good segue. It's a question I wanted to ask you. With the Gates layoffs, that's a lot. That's 80 employees. And one of the things that I hear people talk about is manufacturing is not Iola's future. We can't depend on these huge mega developed employment opportunities where you have, think of Panasonic, where you have 4,000 employees or 4,000 jobs. It's instead about getting these small businesses that maybe employ 3 to 10 people.
Yeah.
But one of those is but I guess I'm kind of curious about where should our energies be? And in your work, where is your energy? Is it about getting another Gates to come in?
Right.
Is it about supporting the small business that wants to open up on the square? I imagine it's both.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to say, well, it's both.
Right.
But I guess I'm just kind of wondering how you see the balance in your time and energies and as a community. I mean, I also don't want Russell Stover and Gates and Peerless and Tramec and Precision and B&W and Monarch to just
the list is really long.
I mean, the list, think Cinema Next. I mean,
everybody is like shocked when we go through that list of primaries.
So I understand how important they are, especially, to the city of Iola, utility usage and consumption of electricity and water. I mean, they're paying a lot of our bills.
Right.
So I guess I was just curious to kind of see where you fall on that big versus small.
So your standalone economic developer in a larger municipality or larger city really does just focus on primaries. And that's what I did historically before this. So I was housed in an organization that was a chamber, an economic development corporation, and underneath that there was a small business development center and a housing advocacy group. That was the structure I came from. And when I moved over
now that's
here,
you.
And I know, right? And now exactly that. Moving over, what I've really kind of learned and been catching up with is what I will now call community building, which encompasses economic development. Economic development focuses on your primary businesses. Primary businesses create jobs and investment by creating a widget in town. They send the widget outside of the town, someone purchases it, and then that investment comes back into your community, right? That's why we call them primary employers. So you can say I used to give the example of Integris just because it was a project that closed and they did a really good job about explaining this. But at the time with that project, Integris was a manufacturer that closed with 597 jobs. From the 597 jobs were over 1,500 induced or indirect jobs, which is construction workers, corner coffee shops, anything. I like to say it would be our Wild Bloom. It would be Anderson
our
Plumbing,
Audacious, our
right?
Jock
Yes,
Snitch,
exactly. It grows those jobs as a result. It's the ripple effect of a primary. We could do just secondary. And that's what's called a bedroom community. And I would say that when you look across Allen County, if we wanted to go back and forth, you and I could probably think of smaller communities outside of our county seat, outside of Iola, that are bedroom communities. We want them to have coffee shops. We want them to have a Dollar General.
Think of gas and
you got it. And really those communities get to decide what that looks like. If they want to go after primaries, we'll go after primaries. But a lot of times they're really focused in more of a family-oriented, we want to be this suburb of or this bedroom community, essentially. So if Iola ends up being a bedroom community and no longer houses any primary industry, it means that their success will be based off of a community that does have primary industry. And we would become a bedroom community. When you talk about security and being a standalone, that's when you want to have your primaries. That's when you want to have your manufacturers.
Yeah.
But you are going to experience things like Gates, but then you're also going to experience things like Prairieland. We're going to have both of those experiences. It's just hard not to sit in the one that is, of course, more disappointing. And I think we do that a lot.
Right.
But I want to encourage everyone to remember that we have companies growing here and that we did just land Prairieland and that beautiful facility out there and the opportunities that came with it.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
No.
I was at the ribbon cutting with Lissa, who I think, I can't remember if Jonathan Gearing was still in that role or if he hadn't come, but when Peerless opened during the pandemic, I mean, that was not that ancient history. I mean, that was just 4 or 5 years ago.
And Peerless is hiring right now. So their growth has been slow, but their growth is happening. And sometimes slow and steady, wins the race. Look at me. I'm on fire with the phrases today.
So let me ask the question then that I've been thinking about when I think about primary industry. And that's a new term for me, but I think, how can we keep our primary industries happy? And how do we as a community compete against others who are probably trying to lure them? And it's a global marketplace now, the competition, the field is global. So what do we need to do? Maybe some things that we aren't doing, maybe some things that we need to keep doing, but I'm just curious. I mean, your talk of a bedroom community sounds quaint, but it also kind of like it worries me.
Right, right.
And so
traditionally, communities like this one, where we already have a really strong manufacturing base, they don't want to go to be a primary. You've already done, your forefathers have done the work.
Right.
Like there are manufacturers here. This is a standalone. It's truly unique and special to this region to see how many manufacturers you have here.
So how do we keep this good thing going?
We have to do a few things. One of them is we have to look at our product. So your town is your business and we're selling something, and what we're selling is industrial sites. So that means we need to have real collateral that tells people what those industrial sites include. We need to have utility infrastructure to support. So as we bring in funding from the great manufacturing base that we have, and our community looks at its budget, as our elected leaders look at their budget, they need to be thinking, what next step do we need to take to make sure that we aren't reactionary when it comes to our utility inventory? That's very important. We do not want to be just-in-time utility. We want to be prepared for that next opportunity, because if we close on a deal, on a project, and we don't know anymore what we have in electric or water for that next investment, then that closes down any conversations until we're able to make that investment. And now we're just sitting on our hands and waiting. Sure. A lot of these projects take 15, 18, 24 months to close because we're talking millions and millions of dollars. The last project we submitted on in Iola was last week, and it was $35 million. Right. So you can imagine that's traditionally not like an overnight decision. That's very rare, right?
So break this down then for the utilities.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, let's just take Iola's case, because we own our utilities. We own our water and electric.
We do, yes.
And so we've got a business that wants to come in, and that business says, I'm going to use so many megawatts of electricity.
Right.
So the question then to the city is, do you have this on your grid available?
Right.
And if not, how soon can you
You
Can
got
you
it.
get it?
So
and
we
if
got,
we
yes.
if we don't have it, one,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have plans for two to get it,
Right.
then they look somewhere else.
Exactly.
Is that the
we're
nut
really
of it?
mitigating the risk. You got it. So they're going to come in and want to make sure that we have the inventory to support, and it's infrastructure, utilities, and workforce and talent, right? And so we're going to answer those questions. And let's say one of the answers isn't perfect. It's not quite what they want to hear.
Okay.
Then you are correct. Then I'm going to say, well, we don't have the transformer right now to get to 7 megawatts, but we can have it by Q2 of 2026. So then I, as an economic developer, will say something like 2 questions. When are you going to make your site selection decision? And with that, sometimes I'll also ask, who are we competing against? Because I like to say who I'm pushing up against.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next question is, when are you going to commence operations?
Right.
Because that tells me my drop date. So no, as long as I don't have to say no,
Right.
I don't say no. So it's
Right.
full honesty, transparency.
Okay, so let me look up north and look at Eudora with Panasonic.
Mhm.
I can only imagine they did not have those utilities
Right.
in place.
Right.
So they got all that in. I mean, I'm
They would
sure
have
once
had
Panasonic
to-
select, then they
That's when you get your utility in the room.
and they started sprinting.
And that is the value add of having all four utilities under one umbrella, is that
Mhm.
we can get one person in the room and they can advocate. That one person in the room can advocate for all 4 utilities. And then
Mhm.
we just have to see, well, this is where we're at today. How do we get to yes?
What are the 4 utilities? So water, electric,
wastewater,
sewer.
electric, and gas.
Okay, and gas. Yeah. Okay, so utilities. We've got some work to do there. What else do we need to do?
So we have to know our utility inventory and then prepare for the future, infrastructure and sites. And then for workforce and talent, we have to have more and more conversations. And I mean, this is actually comes into developing our sales pitch. So a lot of this is on me, quite frankly. I need to look through every study we've ever done and ascertain if we need a more recent study that speaks to what we have in our current labor pool and what we need for the future. Because employers are very insistent that they're looking for 2 things, the talent of today and the talent of the future. And then we also need to be looking at, they always, a key phrase is today's tourist is tomorrow's talent. And that's where tourism comes in. Now, tourism can be a primary industry, and sometimes it can be seen as secondary. Tourism impacts our ability with workforce and talent to show a positive migration. And so it's beyond essential. And if we can encourage people to come out here, enjoy things like the Lehigh Portland State Park, do some of the trails, get into Humboldt, right? And enjoy some of that downtown corridor, things like that, then that is our opportunity to sell what it means to live and do business in Iola, Kansas.
Okay.
I would not be surprised. And that would be another thing we need to do, is we need to do a perception study. We need to find out, when people hear Iola, Kansas, what do they think? My guess is they haven't heard of us. And if they haven't heard of us, then we're not telling our story. So we have to tell our story. And nobody's going to tell your story better than you. So we can't expect somebody to come in on what do they say, like a white horse? Like we have to do that work. We have to create the narrative. We have to get the people here so that they can see that this is a place to be.
When you mentioned something just a couple seconds ago, you like to ask, who am I competing against?
Yeah.
Who is Iola competing in Allen County? Humboldt's and Moran's and Iola's. Who are we competing against? Is it truly global? Is it no, it's actually just Fort Scott and Chanute. I mean,
right? I think that is something.
Does it depend on the business? I imagine
it does, but also it's something that I am still learning. I know there are certain communities in Southeast Kansas that will be competing against. The last project, I think it was 2 actual larger municipalities in the state of Kansas that we competed with, but we don't even know, like, when a site selector comes to the state, that doesn't mean it's the only state they're going to, right? So I'll give an example. One of the projects I worked in my past, it was 5 different states that I competed against, and then 6 communities in the state I was in alone. So just to kind of give you some of how expansive this can look.
Right.
The question, and this is something that comes with having more time and doing the work, it's a question you ask every single time is, who else are we competing with? And then if we don't win the project, what could we have done better? I mean, it's so funny because it is so very similar to how you run a business. And a lot of times we can forget, because we get comfortable, that a city is a business, and that we want to appreciate our customers. And our customers are the people who choose to live here and the people who choose to do business here. And then on the other side of that, when we get it wrong, we need to be ready to hear that and fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. I push back a little bit on this idea of the city as a business. I think about how the city does things that businesses would never do. For example, operates a municipal pool that continues to lose money year after year.
That is very true.
Totally not the point, though. The
Yeah.
point is those quality of life issues that bring people in.
Yeah. But a pool does have an ROI. It's just that the ROI isn't cents, right? It's quality of life.
Well, and Allen County Recycling is making the same argument. The idea that, no, we won't generate enough for this to be viable in dollars and cents.
Yeah.
But this is a type of ROI where you have people feel like this is a community they want to live in. That, does the things that I expect a city to do.
You know what's interesting about the recycling that I have been thinking about recently is when the recycling conversations came out, I didn't have any opinion in the conversation because ultimately at that point, most times with industry, we're not that big of a fan of things that involve, and not always, but can not involve recycling, because the idea is that it comes with regulation and potential extra cost. And is it being ran in the right ways? Like there's a lot of questions, right? But as I have started working on who and understanding who is Iola, as in when we tell our story, what is the story that I will be telling? Because I'm part of this community now too. So that means I get to have an opinion. And so as I got to know the people here and the companies here, and then as I looked at the park and I learned about how large this community was, and then how much pain and struggle it went through, and how it's regrowing and kind of climbing back out of that and redefining what it looks like. I really do see it as an industrial revolution, like this civic oriented, like people inspired projects is what I'm seeing, right? Recycling really comes into that because recycling is renewal. And renewal is when you look at a brownfield or an industrial park that everyone thinks no one can use.
Or an abandoned quarry.
And you reclaim it. And you do it. And the reason I say people inspired is this community did it before the state saw it.
Sure.
And that means something. Over 14 miles of trails by volunteers and one full-time employee. That's mind-blowing. And I think...
And think of the bitterness if it works the other way.
Yes.
You know that you have these people-inspired projects, and then local government doesn't buy in. That's one of my concerns, is that we've seen with the trails, with park, and there are many other initiatives. Safe Base is a good example of Angela Henry just believing that thing into existence. You know, and now it's one of the longest standing after-school programs in the state. But when city government doesn't pick up on that energy, people really feel ignored.
Defeated.
Defeated and deflated. And this whole idea of like, well, maybe it is all just for nothing.
Well, I can tell you at the core of who I am, I'm a salesman and it sells. So you don't have to like it. I don't care if you like it. I can tell you what my job is to get industry excited about expanding, relocating, and coming to this community. And so if you care about the dollars alone, like take out any altruistic feelings or what people are really kind of coming around and wrapping around, which is a beautiful thing. But if you set that aside, these things sell. Community pools sell. Families come to town and they see that pool open and they realize small town America is still here, that this is a community where they're going to get to know their neighbors. I came from a large city. I didn't know my neighbors. I came to a small town because I wanted a place that I knew that my kids could grow up and have a sense of community and safety. I want to go to the pool in the middle of the summer. I want a teenager to be the lifeguard. And I want to pretend I'm in, what's that kids movie where they play baseball? I've been talking about Sandlot.
Yeah.
I love Sandlot. So I say all of this. That is how I have, as somebody coming into this community, I have grown to know Iola. That is the lens I have.
And I want to go back to the recycling thing, if only because I think it's that same idea of who's telling our story, and I think when you have that as part of our story and you say, hey, this community group got together, they started this, it became something that the city and the county teamed together on. feeds into that collaboration. It's part of our story. It's
Yeah.
part of how we understand who we are. The flip side is, and then it all fell apart and nobody picked up on it and everybody ended up mad at each other and it was a disaster. That is the community that drives people out. And, you know, businesses say, you know what? I don't really want to be here. The vibe's all wrong. It's just, I'll go somewhere else.
Nobody wants to do business somewhere where they view that town got lucky or that business got lucky and that's why they're successful. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
Your hardship and exhaustion and that fight, that is the tenacity that breeds success. And so if you get there too easily, I feel like we tell our kids this all the time, but it's applicable to life, right? It's the scars that make us stronger.
Everything given to you.
Yeah. And so when you have to fight for these things and then you grow them despite the fact, I mean, it's just such a better product in the end. That's what I see is such a better product. Because I will say, and I've said this before, when people argue, it shows they care. And there's a lot of communities that we've all been to that are very quiet. Iola is not quiet.
The last question or kind of the last topic I want to ask you about is, you were before here in Colorado Springs. Colorado is booming. Colorado Springs is growing. These are high growth communities. About a month ago, I was in Utah in Salt Lake area, and I had never seen
they're booming
such growth. I mean, it was insane.
They're the like number one competitor for Colorado Springs. Those two cities.
I didn't know this, but Utah's been like the fastest growing state in the country for the last decade. I mean, just everywhere. And I just was randomly on my phone and I Zillowed a home, that I saw, and every home was over $1 million. I mean, it's just price of housing is crazy.
And that's great for us.
It is. I hear your point. That you'll get people who can just buy cash houses here. But I wanted to know if there is really, if you feel like we've got, Allen County's been losing population for a long time. I think in the last 100 years, there's just been maybe 1 or 2 decades where it went up. There's that brief honeymoon period in the 70s when we had Gates and Berg and, some manufacturers come in. But other than that, it's kind of been the same story all across the state, and pretty much all across the country. Rural America is shrinking. And so I just wanted to know how that informs how you approach your job, and whether there is reason for us to feel like we can do this, or if this is a current that we're going to be constantly swimming upstream, or if there are businesses that are bucking that trend. I just... sometimes people say to me, it's Iola's story is foretold. The conclusion is eventually we're going to run out of people. And I just kind of wondered what you think about that.
Well, I don't agree. I didn't come here to close the coffin.
Yeah, sorry, that was a loaded question.
No, it was a really good question, but I definitely don't agree with that thought process. I think that coming into the community, seeing all the unique projects and things that you're doing, and again, seeing the strong manufacturing base. Manufacturers are steel in the ground. That's why we love our warehouse and distribution. We love our other primaries, but warehouse and distribution is a lot easier to close up shop than a manufacturer. And so that's why I always say it's steel in the ground. Those are all opportunities. In terms of the growth side of it, I think small towns are going to become and are becoming, with these younger generations, more and more of a place to be. The cost of living is crippling in larger communities, and companies are looking at the cost of living. Now, we have to always make sure that we're looking at all of the pieces of the puzzle.
We've got that housing. That begs the question, right? Do we have the housing for them?
Right. Having a housing inventory, looking at our sales tax and our property taxes, and are we competitive, and really breaking those down and asking ourselves the hard questions and doing the work. All of that needs to continue to happen. But no, I don't think Iola, Kansas is done. I think it has a very long history ahead of itself. I think that when you look at some of these other communities, and you'll see it with Iola too, it's just I'm still learning. the economic base, the way they tell their story, how they do business, it has to pivot. It has to change and innovate and grow. And so that's what we're going to have to do. If we want to just do the same old, then yes.
Yeah.
It won't get better. If you keep doing exactly what you're doing and population is decreasing, then I would assume that everyone listening to this would agree with me that none of the factors in the formula are changing. Yeah. Now,
they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing.
And economic developers are famous for saying, I have never said it. I don't even like the phrase because I think it's dark, but if you're not growing, you're dead. Right? Yeah. That's the key phrase. You'll hear economic developers say that again, because economic developers, I mean, you're talking to one, right? We're about growth and change. We're change makers. And that's also an anxiety building kind of thing. Not everything should change, but that's what my point of being in a room is about. It's about growth and it's about change. And that's also why, I'm not your mayor. I'm not on your city council. I'm just one of many people in the room consulting them.
Okay. I know you can't tell us most of what I'm going to ask you about, but I still want to ask you anyways.
Okay.
So I know that all of these deals and projects are always, kind of cloaked, top secret, off limits. We can refer to the existence of, but I'm kind of curious. If you can share any sort of details about some people who have reached out or have reached out to you, what kind of businesses or industries, what sectors are they in? I just kind of want to know some dirt on a little bit of what you've been working on so far.
So data centers have come up, aerospace manufacturing, kind of that area has been brought up as well. Those are the two primary, and when we talk about those are the two that have come up the most, the patterns that I've seen the most in terms of the projects we've submitted on. Data centers are nice because they're a large amount of capital investment, but low job creation numbers. And so as I'm able to really look at the numbers, everything we do has to be based in data. It has to be based on the numbers.
We don't have a ton of people who could join a data center, but we have the land and the utilities, and it would raise up our property valuations.
Data centers tend to have a small number of jobs at very high salaries. It diversifies our tax base, and so we always say that it pays for roads and schools without you paying more taxes.
Sure.
So that's why we want the high wage positions.
In aerospace, we've got that. Recently, the ARPA funds for the airport extended.
The airport looks very attractive to a lot of different potential projects. And so really right now, we're at a place where we're just firming up what does our inventory look like so that it can be sold. But those are the big ones that we've talked about. And then lots of little business I wouldn't be able to go into whatsoever because then everybody would know who I'm talking about. But lots of interest in our downtown corridor. I had a project came in last week that looked at something like 4 or 5 different spaces right in President Square in Iola. And I was going to be looking into doing some renovating of one of our historic buildings. So lots of exciting things.
Exciting things to see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Camille. I appreciate your time.
No problem.